Hi, I'm Nick Hague, and I'm the host of the World's Greatest Business Thinkers podcast. And today I'm with Paul Hague talking about product frameworks. Arguably, you could say that the products a company has to sell are the most critical of the 4 Ps. After all, a company can't exist unless it has something to sell customers. And by product, I mean whatever it is that the company offers. In some cases, it will be a product. In other cases, it could be services. Before we start talking about frameworks, though, let's think about what comprises an offer, because it's not just the tangible thing we make or provide. There's quite a lot of wraps around the core, aren't there?
Well, I think a good starting point for this discussion is what you and I used to do a lot of, and that is work with commodity products. So a commodity is something which is a uniform specification. The product is everything in a commodity, and we work for many companies that made basic products such as commodities. And we would talk to them about marketing, and they would say, well, marketing's not for us, there's not much we can do here. Everybody who buys our products is looking for a specification. In fact, all we can market on is price. And then we would get into discussion about deliveries and the technical service that they might provide and other customer service issues and the brand. And at the end of the day, they would say, well, you're right. People aren't just buying this commodity from us. They're buying something with a wraparound, something that's beyond the product. And that would be very helpful, of course, to a commodity company. And it moves us on to things like frameworks. And I think a useful starting point for the frameworks is Kotler. He suggested that there were 5 different levels for products. He said that the first level is the core product. That's the commodity, if you like. He used the example of airlines. He said, the core product for an airline is it flies from A to B and gets you there safely. And then the second level, he says there's the generic product, something beyond the core product. For example, an airline would have a schedule, and it would be expected to keep to the schedule and perhaps have quite a few schedules linking various cities. And then the third level is an expected product. So when you fly with an airline, you might have an expectation of a reasonably comfy seat and possibly a friendly experience. And the fourth level, he said, there's an augmented product, something that could be added to this product. And this is less tangible. And so here we're thinking about the brand. I'm enjoying flying with this airline because, I can tell people that I've flown with Emirates or I've flown with the particular Singapore Airlines. And the brand is something that gives me some perceptions and other people's perceptions. And then finally, the fifth level, Kotler's 5 levels of product, is the potential product. You always need to be looking for where the product is going. And it could be a better product that you're launching in the future. Of course, it could be a stripped down product. Some people might say the next level is we will take this out, and we will provide a cheaper product. So the future product, the potential product, is the 5th level that Kotler would recommend.
Yeah, I really like that framework. I like it because it helps us see as well. We've also talked about innovation in another series, but innovation, new product development, where it should go beyond the core products. And it's not just important to improve the core product, looking at those augmented products that wrap around it as well. Yeah. And I think, understanding what features or services enhance the product is one way, and one way to do that, as we know as researchers, it's sometimes considering ethnographic research, seeing how customers actually use a product in order to build on those enhancements. Let's begin with some of the basics then. What frameworks do you think make a good starting point for sharpening up our product offer?
Well, you just touched on understanding what customers do with the product. And I think the customer value proposition, what is it about the product that people value? How do they use that product is the starting point. And we should never forget that people don't buy products for their own sake. They buy a product because there's a job to be done. We buy food because we need to eat. We buy products in a business-to-business sense because we're incorporating them in our product. So there's a job to be done here, and we need to understand that. So the customer value proposition, understanding what people value about the product, is our starting point. And there are lots, by the way, of frameworks which are more sophisticated than just analysing that. You could, for example, use conjoint and say, to people. Conjoint is a process where you would show various iterations of a product, different levels of specification against a different price. And the respondent would see different combinations of these elements of the product and different prices and make a selection saying which they would likely to buy. They'd see 20 or 30 of these different combinations. And when that's been completed, it would be run through software which would tell you what the elements of the product that they really do value. So we're back to a customer value proposition using Conjoint, saying this is what people like about the product, this is what people will pay for. So Conjoint's a possibility. And there are other frameworks a little bit like it. I mean, there was a Noriaki Kano, a Japanese professor of quality, developed a framework in which he said there are three things that people look for from a product. They look for basic things, so we're back like to Kotler and his core product. They look for something that's fairly basic in the product. They expect that. And then there are some things in the product that they might be buying which are performance, and they're comparing it to other products and saying, I get better performance from this particular product, which is why I like it. And then there are some things which he said could excite me about the product. I mean, that might be something that the product does, but it could also be an intangible like the brand. And so Kano would say, we will ask these questions of what people require from the product, the basic, the performance and the excitement, and we would plot those and we would build those into the product, and that would enable us to gain market share. So lots of different frameworks, starting with a customer value proposition and then working out what people actually do value and what might give you a competitive advantage.
And you started talking there about the customer value proposition, didn't you? And I think, in order to build that, you need to look at all sources. Obviously, you need to speak to your customers and potential customers, interviews, focus groups, understand what they're wanting, what and what they're maybe not receiving from what's in market at the moment. But also looking at competitor products and then looking internally. I think, running workshops where you've got all representatives of different parts of the company, salespeople, technical staff, marketing people, all staff levels to build that proposition. You really do need that knowledge from all sources 360 degrees in order to build it, don't you?
Well, one thing that you mentioned research as well earlier on, Nick, and one thing we did for a company that was a paper distributor was we did a anthropological research, if you like. We went into the customer's premises and stayed there all day. We had researchers there all day, seeing what they did with the paper and how the paper was received and so on. And what we noticed was that, or what our researchers noticed, was that almost every day in the printer who was buying the paper, there would be a delivery from our client, and it would be in a van. And very often it was just a white van, subcontracted, often dirty. And these guys who were delivering the paper were ambassadors of the paper company. So people or our client imagined that what people were buying was paper. And indeed they were. But they also were buying delivery, and they expected something beyond a dirty white van to deliver their paper. And so we went back and recommended that they ought to have branded vehicles and they ought to be clean, and these guys who delivered ought to be trained in what they should do. And it lifted the company. I mean, it made a huge difference. They didn't need to change anything to do with the paper, but they changed how they got it. And we got that through anthropological research, where we were sort of there watching people, seeing how they worked.
Yeah. And again, going back to Kotler, it's one of those augmented offerings around the core product itself on how you can enhance and make a difference there. It's sometimes said that if you build a better mousetrap, write a better book, or preach a better sermon, the world will beat a path to your door. It implies that your product is everything. What do you think of this? Do you agree with that?
Well, this is a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said that, product is everything. Build a better mousetrap, write a better book, and that's all you need to do. And I used to be very impressed by this, because who would argue that with the fact that a good product is what people want, and indeed a good product is what people want. Our contention is, though, that because we're marketing people, that there are a lot of very good products around that people don't know about. And if they don't know about them, they can't buy them. So it's no good building a fantastic mousetrap or writing a fantastic book if we can't promote it and get it into the supply chain and get it into people's hands. And in addition to that, what we do know is that people, going back to the branding that we talked about on airlines, but also with that paper company that was making deliveries, people are looking for something a little bit better than a mousetrap. They want a mousetrap with a reputation, with a good name. They're looking for a book with a good author and somebody who's well known. So yes, if you build a good mousetrap or write a good book or preach a good sermon, people will, you have a chance of getting them to your door, but you need something else. Remember the 4 Ps. It's not just about the product. It's about promotion, place, and price.
Yeah. Yeah, so therefore, building a better mousetrap is necessary, to keep pushing the envelope, but it's definitely not sufficient for success. And that may have been true if you lived in a small village 500 years ago, but your audience is now living in a digital world of these limitless options. So, to cut through the noise, it takes top-notch products, but savvy marketing to connect them.
It's absolutely core, Nick. I mean, I remember, perhaps this would be going back about 20 years, actually, or 15, 20 years. We used to do quite a lot of research in the vehicle market, in the car market, and Honda was losing market share in the UK. And it became pretty apparent that this very good company, Honda, and it still is a good company, they hadn't got the product lineup. If a car manufacturer hasn't got the products that people want, it won't sell cars. Mm. So the starting point is to have the right product. And a good product can be enhanced with a good brand. If you've got a poor product, you can't enhance it. You can't make a poor product good with a better with a good brand. So what you do need is that product lineup, and then you need to push the promotion and build that reputation with a good brand.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that brings us nicely then to wrap it all up. We need to go and build a better mousetrap, but don't stop there. Don't wait for the world to beat a path to your door. Set aside some time. Visit b2bframeworks.com, and that will help you build your strategy accordingly. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Nick.